All right, so Glock just discontinued your commercial pistol model. Keep commercial in mind as we move forward. And obviously, it's kind of a problem because when it comes to preparedness, Glocks are ubiquitous and they have been for decades. I mean, let's be honest, they have a huge track record of reliability and durability, which may need to come into question now, which we'll talk about later. We also know that Glocks benefit from a massive logistics ecosystem, which is great for everybody who's invested in them, but could that be changing? And at the same time, the commercial aspect is where I have some questions about how things will look moving forward, because that's where a lot of the spite actually might be deserved versus a lot of the speculation that's going on out there right now. And of course, we do have to talk about the obvious thing that's happening. Glock just discontinued pretty much every model of pistol that they've made up until this point for the commercial market, and are moving over to what's called their new V series. Now, the V series is going to be extremely limited. There's a lot of things we got to talk about regarding that when it comes to compatibility and parts and stuff like that. But there's a lot of speculation right now that this is because of lawsuits and litigation, where Glock is being targeted because their pistols can be easily converted into a machine pistol using an aftermarket device known as a switch. Now, Glock is going to say that that's not necessarily why this is happening. They're saying they're moving forward into the future so they can progress their product lines and then set everything up to have a more successful launch for next generation pistols, right? So that's what's going to be said, and that's what's kind of out there right now. But we also know that they're dealing with a ton of lawsuits and a ton of issues because of this machine pistol device known as a switch causing them problems. However, something else to keep in mind regarding that is that these switches have been around since the late 1980s. They were invented in 1987, they were patented in 1996, and so there's been a lot of time for generational changes to remove that issue if it truly was an issue, which was well known about. And yet, suddenly it's happening now with a massive discontinuation occurring, which can lead to issues, especially regarding preparedness, which is why I'm addressing this. So we're going to dive into all those different things because there's a lot to go over and I have a lot of thoughts about some of what's happening right now. And I want to give you some advice, especially if you're new to all this and you're not really sure what direction to go and how this is going to affect you as a prepared citizen. So we'll jump into all that as soon as we get a word in from today's video sponsor. I want to take a second to thank SDI, the Sonoran Desert Institute, for supporting the channel. Now, I know what you're thinking, but if you want to learn gunsmithing or how to work with drones and become a better asset to your community without having to relocate or travel to a facility, SDI can provide you with that education. And it's an accredited college, so at the end you could come out with a degree. And whatever you do with that education thereafter is up to you. And of course, they're updating their programs and supplying additional equipment and tools, so the education you get will be valuable. So check out sdi.edu/magic to get additional information. There will be links in the description as well as in the pinned comment, and I thank SDI for their support. All right, thanks to SDI for supporting the channel. I know they're making improvements over there based on feedback, which I can appreciate. So if you want to check them out, I implore you to do so. Now, here's the thing. The big issue you need to watch out for is all of this talk regarding commercial product lines. I know a lot of people are upset and speculating about the potential capitulation of Glock to these anti-gun organizations and all these lawsuits and litigation coming from blue ran cities and states and all this other stuff that's happening regarding the potential conversion of these pistols to machine pistols being so easily accessible by criminals. But regardless, from my standpoint right now, because I can understand insulating yourself as a business and a manufacturer from the future possibility of going bankrupt, right? Like, I get that. It doesn't always work in our favor as consumers, but it is something that they have to be concerned about as a business. However, with everything being discussed right now and all the different pieces of literature that we have access to, the word commercial just keeps showing up time and time again. Even the V-Series announcement says the new commercial line of V-Series pistols will be these guns, which I'll tell you about here in just a second. But that's a problem for me, because when Glock just recently discontinued a whole bunch of pistols, which wasn't very long ago, right? There were some relatively newer pistols on that list and very popular models, including the Glock 17 Gen 5 MOS or the Glock 34 Gen 5 MOS. I mean, those are newer generation optics-ready pistols that were discontinued on the commercial market. However, if you go see what they offer the law enforcement market, they still have access to Glock 17 Gen 5 MOS and Glock 34 Gen 5 MOS pistols. And that's where things start to make me a little bit more upset. Because what the commercial semantics tend to seem like to me is that they're discontinuing guns like these Glock 45 Gen 5s, which I'm just going to hold 2 guns for a little bit because I like it. But regardless, what they're saying is we're discontinuing these guns for you. Not for law enforcement and not for military contracts, but just for you, the civilian consumer. You don't get to have these anymore. We're going to discontinue them, which means we're going to take a giant hit in the amount of parts and accessories and everything else related to these particular pistols. And if law enforcement still wants them, no problem. Now, here's the thing. I don't know that for a fact. I don't have the information from their Blue Label program or anything else like that right now. But based on the recent discontinuation of some very popular models, still allowing those models to be accessed by law enforcement agencies, but just not by the general public, I have concerns when every single thing I've read about the new V series says commercial on it, okay? And maybe it's from being in California where I used to live and having to jump through hoops every time I bought a gun. Had to wait 10 days to go pick it up, could only get a 10-round magazine, could only get Gen 3 Glocks because of the handgun roster. It was a nightmare. But police were exempt from that. And I don't think that's okay because the 2A community in the United States of America, the civilian armed citizen population, has supported Glock for decades, has paid them a crap load of money, and has made them what they are in many ways when it comes to how big they are. For them to say, well, we'll still give these to police or military, but just not you, that's the problem for me. The other stuff I can kind of justify or understand to a degree just because of how business works. Does it work in our favor all the time? No, not at all. Is it good for public perception of the fact that lawsuits and litigation can lead to manufacturers actually potentially capitulating? Of course not. And Glock's never going to admit that. They're going to say, oh, our new V series is just to get us ready for the next generation of pistols, and we had to make some slight design changes to have a baseline, right? Like, that's what they're going to say. In reality, I think we all know what's going on here. But regardless, the whole you can't have this, but they can thing, that's where I start to get upset. And look, I work with a training organization for police officers. So it's not like I'm skewed in that sense of like, oh, you know, I don't care because cops need what they need. No, it's I should be able to have anything a police officer can have. Let's be honest. So regardless, okay, that's where you need to watch out for. Is the commercial thing going to be the issue? Because if the commercial thing is the problem, and we start getting information that, oh yeah, all these guns are discontinued all the way up to this point, except for the new V series, unless you're law enforcement, because then you can just go ahead and keep buying, you know, Glock 45 Gen 5s or Glock 47 Gen 5s or whatever you want. That's a problem for me, okay? Now, let's move on to the V series and parts compatibility, because that's a huge issue. One of the reasons we get into Glocks, one of the reasons I suggest Glocks for preparedness is because of the huge logistics stream of parts and the fact that they're affordable and easy to access and that there's just Glocks everywhere you go, so you know you'll always have the ability to keep yours up and running or whatever you got to do, right? Like, I mean, that's one of the selling points of Glock pistols. It seems that there's going to be some internal changes with this new V series, which may not lead to parts compatibility, which may lead to a limited amount of parts being accessible because of discontinuation. And we know for a fact now that we've gotten information from a distributor saying that the performance Glock pistol, the OEM factory part that Glock makes, the performance pistol will not work in the V series pistols. So if that trigger and that factory component won't work in V series pistols, then it tells me there's a significant amount of change happening internally on the guns. And what it says on the V series announcement is that the guns are the same externally. It definitely does not say that internally, which we already knew because they're preventing these switches from being able to convert them to machine pistols. So we knew there was going to be changes, but to what degree? And the Glock trigger, the performance trigger, not being able to work in the new V series pistols is concerning. And of course, having access to parts that are compatible with all your older guns, and having access to parts that you can keep your older guns running for a long period of time is always important from a preparedness standpoint, especially because one of the best things about Glocks is, that they've been in production for so long, that we've been able to get other ones up until this point, no problem, and suddenly they're just going to not be around anymore, and that is kind of a problem for me. So, give me 1 second here. Glock Koa. I mean, these just came out like this year. None of these are listed on the new list of V-Series pistols. This was supposed to be the answer because you actually have a real optics cut on here, and you don't have to rely on MOS plates or anything like that. But we don't see the Glock Koa coming along with this new line of V-Series pistols. So there's a lot of concern about what changes have been made. Maybe the slide can't be cut to this degree anymore because of the internal changes, which means like optics mounting is very limited, which is true based on the information we just received. And we're going to go over all the new models that are coming out that are relevant to probably what you have and the lack thereof when it comes to optics mounting capability as soon as we get a word in from TacPack, because they've been really helping the channel out and I appreciate them. This video sponsor is TacPack. Now, TacPack is a monthly subscription service that supplies you with equipment, accessories, and other items relevant to preparedness. And November's TacPack is the highest value box they've ever sent out. If you sign up for the monthly plus subscription tier, it'll be valued at $446 and only costing you $140 with shipping. And if you use the code READY556, they'll add an additional $110 of value to your TacPack, bringing it up to a total of $556 in overall value, which is huge. Now, of course, TacPacks have a lot of awesome stuff, including SOG fixed blade knives, Enforce weapon mounted lights, Rats tourniquets, Die-Free Co Kung Fu grips, Mantis dry fire systems, and Terminator hot dogs. Not to mention a whole lot of other awesome stuff coming in November's TacPack. There's really never been a better time to sign up. So make sure you check out TacPack.com, sign up for that monthly plus tier subscription, and use that code READY556 to get a ton of value and to support a great company that not only supports this channel, but also supports the 2A community. All right, thanks TacPack for always helping me out. And of course, I understand 2 ads in a video, really? Yeah, really. And honestly, here's the thing. Maybe I won't need to do that anymore if I hang out with this guy for long enough, because yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Now, here's the pistols that they're coming out with for the V-Series, and it kind of tells you something when it comes to what they're doing regarding optics support. So they're coming out with the Glock 17V, the Glock 19V, Glock 19XV, Glock 45V, Glock 26V, Glock 19 Comped V, as well as a 45 and a 17 comped version of the V series as well. So the comped guns coming back around is kind of cool, I guess. We'll see how it goes. But the only optics ready pistols that they're coming out for the commercial market, don't forget, commercially, the only optics ready ones with the MOS system and the V series that have been announced currently are the Glock 20, the Glock 23, the Glock 21, and a Glock 19X that's only from a distributor exclusive. So, the only optics-ready V-Series Glocks that are coming out right now are chambered in 10mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP, and then there's one chambered in 9mm, but you have to get it from a distributor because they have it exclusively. So I guess optics support's not super important anymore. It sounds like they can put the MOS system on these V-Series slides, but they don't want to for some reason, or who knows what. So it just seems like things aren't quite right. And a big thing that I think you need to decide upon moving forward, if you're already invested in Glocks and you have a bunch of them already, then you're probably fine, right? Like, these pistols are good guns. It still works, it still runs. It's not having any problems just because of this announcement, but it does give you some considerations of like, hey, maybe I should get some additional parts. Maybe I should get that backup Glock 45 that I've been talking about, because, then I have 2 guns that are exactly the same. So maybe now's the time, but I also know that this is basically discontinued now. So, okay, this is a discontinued gun, which means, like, how much future support can I anticipate, right? How many changes are they going to make on the next generation if the V-Series already has significant enough changes to not even work with the Glock Performance trigger? Like, those are all things that I think are worth considering. Myself, I've got 2 Glock 45 Gen 5s. I've got a ton of Glock mags. I've got a ton of spare parts. I got a ton of stuff to keep these 2 pistols up and running for a very long period of time. So I'm not really in a position where it's like a problem. But if I only had like 1 Glock pistol right now, a Gen 5 or whatever, and then I only had a few mags or no extra parts or who knows what else, I might be considering my next move differently than I might have earlier this year. And the reason I say that is because we don't know if the V series is going to be as reliable or as proven as everything else we've had up to this point. The great thing about Glock up to this point is that from the factory, you could be very confident that you would go, open the box, pull the gun out, load it, and take it to the range and shoot it, and everything would just do what it's supposed to. Because they're simple, but very refined designs that just work. And now we're talking about a newer design that, in my opinion, I don't know this for a fact, this is just, let's just say, some level of influenced speculation. That's as far as I'm going with that. I don't think the V series has been in development for as long as what people would want you to believe. And we're talking about internal changes to a degree where we just don't know if that design is going to hold up to the same level of quality as other things we have used currently. And so betting on the V series seems maybe like not a great idea, because for all we know, it could almost just be like a whole new gun, something that we just don't know about yet and needs to be vetted and time tested the same way as all these legacy Glocks are. And that's a problem. So if I didn't own a handgun right now, my old advice would have been, yeah, just go get a Glock. Right now, my thought is like, I don't know, there's a lot of other good options out there, and maybe that's what you should consider at this point in time until we know more. And if you were like, hey, I need to get a handgun for preparedness, I mean, Glocks are still king of the mountain when it comes to logistics, when it comes to holsters and accessories, when it comes to getting, additional things. But right now, unfortunately, I also think there's going to be a level of panic where people are buying up parts, buying up guns, buying up mags, all kinds of stuff because they don't know what's happening. And I feel like that's going to create, a price hike. It's going to create scarcity. It's going to be problematic to that degree. And I've already seen a lot of people online being like, hey, make sure you get this because it might be the last one, right? And like, feels somewhat disingenuous because with a quick search, you can find plenty of Glocks to still acquire. But the more of that goes on, the worse it's going to get, right? So if I had to buy a new gun right now, it would be harder for me to just say, yeah, just get a Glock than it was a few weeks ago. And especially when we know that there are good quality pistols out there that just work, that do the same role and function as a Glock, it'd be hard to not consider that at this point in time, and that's just kind of where I'm at in it. Are you already invested? You already got a ton of Glocks? Then what are you worried about? I mean, you probably already have the parts and the mags and all the stuff. So no big deal. But if you're not invested, or you just have like 1 Glock and it's like you don't even have any of the stuff for it, or if you are looking to buy a new handgun right now and you don't even own one yet, I mean, I think that this would be a time to consider maybe something else just due to the uncertainty. And in all honesty, like I said, if we know that Glock 45 Gen 5, maybe not the KOA, let's say, but even just more simply the MOS, right? If this suddenly just comes out that law enforcement agencies can still buy this, or that military contracts can still get this, but they just won't sell it to you, well, that kind of makes me have a little bit less support at that point, to be honest, because like now is the time for these companies to understand that we matter when it comes to the civilian population of prepared citizens that have been supporting these companies. Yes, I understand mill contracts and law enforcement agency contracts are big money and big lump sums and big contracts that look really great on paper. But I mean, what's the number? We got 40 million gun owners here in the country that aren't necessarily law enforcement or military. I think that's a pretty big number too. And I just don't like the idea of saying that law enforcement or military can have something that we can't from a manufacturer standpoint. That's not when it's like a legal thing where they have to comply, but when they just decide that. That's an issue to me. as somebody who used to live in a very restrictive state. And that would definitely have me second guessing some things, to be honest with you. So watch out for that. I'm not saying that's for sure what's happening, but there's a lot of evidence pointing to it at this point in time in the sense of all the literature we're reading and the need to differentiate the word commercial regarding the product lines that they're discussing. Problematic? Potentially, right? So let me know your thoughts down below. Are you super invested in Glock? Does this bother you? Are you like set anyway? Are you dual wielding Glocks with me right now while you're sitting on your toilet? Because that's cool, and I'm all about that. And if you're that guy doing that right now, hit the subscribe button, like with your clean hand. That way, I know that there's at least one of you who does weird stuff like me. If you want to support the channel, go to magicprepper.com. Lots of ways to do it there. If you want to check out that training organization I was discussing earlier regarding police, it's tf70.org. Make sure you check them out. There's links in the description as well as in the pinned comment. It's a super solid organization with a constitutional emphasis regarding all of the education. And let's just say that the people I work with in this organization are well aware of the problems regarding policing and firearms, and especially the issues regarding police having access to firearms that we don't get to have. So, anything else you need from me, now you know what to do, and besides that, that's going to be it for Magic Prepper.